So friends, D.C. Federal District Court Judge Beryl Howell just struck a devastating blow against the overreach, the abuse of power, and the lawlessness of Trump, Musk, and DOGE. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, in March of 2025, not long after he took office, Donald Trump, together with Elon Musk and DOGE, commandeered, unlawfully seized an independent nonprofit organization, the U.S. Institute of Peace. And it was just 1 week ago that I interviewed 4 USIP employees who were wrongfully terminated, horrifically barred from re-entering their own workplace, and who had their health insurance canceled with just 24 hours notice, some of them to their extreme medical detriment. Well now, Judge Beryl Howell not only put a stop to what Trump, Musk, and DOGE did and continue to do to USIP, but Judge Howell ordered it reversed. So I want to start today with just 3 short paragraphs that describe what Trump, Musk, and DOGE did to USIP, the extreme harm and cruelty they inflicted on the employees, and then we'll turn to today's point of light, beacon of light. As bright as the sun itself, Judge Howell's opinion and the new reporting about that opinion. But let's start with those 3 short paragraphs. This comes from a website called friendsofusip.org. What happened to USIP? Over the last 2 weeks of March, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, illegally took over the U.S. Institute of Peace, USIP, and began brazenly dismantling the organization. Through a concerted campaign of coercion, deception, and force, DOGE first fired the Institute's board of directors and president and seized USIP's privately owned building. DOGE then took over the Institute's computer systems, preventing employees from accessing critical communications platforms, sensitive documents relating to their work, and even their own employee records. Nate Kavanaugh, a 28-year-old DOGE employee with no foreign policy experience, was appointed president of USIP by a rump board of directors. That is stated in context. On the website it says rump. I don't know if that's a typo or just an appropriate synonym for Donald Trump. My editorial edition. Then transferred ownership of USIP's $500 million privately owned building to the U.S. General Services Administration for free. Friends, to this old prosecutor, that feels a lot like theft of a building to the tune of $500 million. On Friday, March 28, DOGE fired over 95% of the Institute's domestic employees via email in the dead of night. These employees were provided no severance pay and told that their health insurance would expire in 1 business day. DOGE's actions have left terminated USIP staff at risk of severe health consequences from an unreasonable and inhumane rescission of insurance. While the situation is dire for domestic employees, USIP's overseas staff are left with immense uncertainty, stranded in active conflict zones with no support staff in the U.S. to help navigate the complex and dangerous challenges they face. And now, friends, the point of light. Here's the new reporting about Judge Beryl Howell's ruling in the USIP case. Headline: Judge deems DOGE takeover of U.S. Institute of Peace null and void. And that article begins: a federal judge on Monday ruled that the Department of Government Efficiency's, DOGE's, takeover of the U.S. Institute of Peace was unlawful, deeming it null and void. U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell found that President Trump and his subordinates used brute force to take over USIP's headquarters and dissemble the independent institute, despite warnings that it did not fall within the executive branch. The judge invalidated the removal of USIP board members and its president, meaning they retain their positions, and the individuals installed by DOGE must be removed. And Judge Howell nullified the transfer of USIP's headquarters to the General Services Administration, returning control to the USIP. Any USIP financial assets transferred to the GSA were also deemed void. The judge also barred DOGE and other Trump administration officials named in the suit from further trespass on USIP's property or within its systems. Quote, the president's efforts here to take over an organization outside of those bounds, contrary to statute established by Congress and by acts of force and threat using local and federal law enforcement officers, represents a gross usurpation of power and a way of conducting government affairs that's unnecessarily traumatized the committed leadership and employees of USIP who deserve better, the judge wrote in a 102-page opinion. Okay, friends, now can I invite you to sit back, get comfortable while I read you the entire 102-page... No, I'm not going to do that to you. But what I will do is I'll put a link to the Hill article in the description of this video, and the Hill article has a link to Judge Howell's opinion if you want to spend a good bit of time reading through a 102-page opinion. I'll warn you, it is dense, it's somewhat complicated at times, but it's important. Boy, is it important. Because federal judges continuing to push back on the horrific cruelty and abject lawlessness of the Trump administration, like justice, matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.